8 o'clock, and is it okay, Madam Clerk, for me to call this meeting to order? Do we have technical things all worked out?
Yes, I think we're ready to go.
Okay, and I will call this Regional Transportation Commission meeting to order on June 21st, and we will start with a roll call. Madam Clerk.
Alexis Hill,
Here.
Mari Luz Garcia,
Here.
Christopher Dare,
Here.
Tracy Larkin Thomason,
Here.
Dale Keller,
Here.
Adam Spear.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We will now move to the Pledge of Allegiance, and I think we're going to throw up a flag here. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We'll now move into public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay, and nothing in the room, I'm assuming.
No, nobody is asking for public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move to the approval of the agenda. I know we removed 1.3. I just want to note we will be doing that in July when we are in person. So other than that change to the agenda, are there any other changes to the agenda, staff?
Vice Chair Hill, there are no other changes.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda, please.
So move.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Garcia, with a second by Commissioner Dare. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, that passes unanimously. We'll now move to our consent items. Do any board members want to pull a consent item today?
No, thank you.
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, then I am looking for a motion on the consent items.
I move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Dare.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. Any questions on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, that passes unanimously. We'll now move to our public hearing, 5.1, and this is an amendment number 3 to the 23-27 Regional Transportation Improvement Program, RTIP, and adoption of the resolution approving amendment number 3 to the RTIP. And so I am looking for a staff presentation at this time.
Good morning, members of the board. Graham Dollarhide, Planning Manager for the record. As mentioned, I'll be presenting a proposed amendment to the federal fiscal year 2023 to 2027 Regional Transportation Improvement Program. This would represent amendment number 3 to that program. So before I get into the details of what's proposed for amendment, I'll just give a kind of a quick overview of the purpose and process of the document. The RTIP is a federally required program of projects document. It advances the goals from the Long Range Regional Transportation Plan, or RTP. Takes those prioritized projects and advances them forward into the shorter range program of projects prior to the implementation phase. It is not a reconciliation document. The programmed amounts do not need to be amended retroactively to match actual expenditures to the document itself. However, as projects evolve, any significant changes to things like scope, budget, limits, things like that will need to be reflected in this document. This is, this RTIP, or any RTIP does include all federally funded or regionally significant transportation projects, regardless of funding source, and carried out by any agency within the MPO boundary, which is oftentimes why you will see projects led by other agencies, or an amendment to projects, or added or deleted projects done at the request of other agencies, as is the case today. So I'm sure you're all familiar with this graphic by now, but this is just a quick high-level overview of the planning and implementation process as I described. Again, moving projects forward from that longer range outlook, with the RTP, into the shorter range program or projects prior to the implementation phases. So just a little bit about this action in particular before I get into the details of the individual projects. The federal fiscal year 2023 to 2027 RTIP was originally adopted in August of 2023. It is federally required to be adopted at least every 4 years. RTC typically does it every other year just to achieve efficiencies in the process. This action proposed today represents the third amendment in this document. Amendment number 1 was completed back in November of 23. Amendment number 2 completed earlier this year in January. And then this proposed amendment is necessary to add new projects and update others, and all projects included in this amendment are led by NDOT. So jumping into the details of each individual project, there are 5 projects included in this proposed amendment. The first one is Tahoe Pyramid Trail East Feasibility Study. This is a new project to the RTIP and is being used to identify the feasibility of filling in some of the gaps in the trail, and creating those connections essentially between Sparks and the Tri-Center, with a bit of a spur, so to speak, between Wadsworth and Fernley. This project was awarded through NDOT's Transportation Alternatives Program and is being proposed to be included in this amendment so that the project can move forward with that study. Also, the South Meadows Connector Alignment Study Project is another new project to the RTIP. This is a very preliminary phase of any proposed project that might come of this, but it is an alignment study kind of looking at the preferred alternatives and the feasibility of extending South Meadows Parkway from its current terminus just east of Veterans Parkway and carrying through to connect to USA Parkway. Again, very preliminary. This would determine the feasibility of moving to next steps, including environmental, NEPA, design, and then eventually construction. The I-580 Bowers to Mount Rose Highway Preservation Project is an existing project in the RTIP. It is being amended to increase the funding, add federal funds to the funding mix, and to move back the construction date. The SR 659 North McCarran Intersection Improvements Project also being amended. This project would decrease the total project cost and change the project limits, but generally speaking, this project will add safety improvements to the area of North McCarran and Keystone. And finally, the I-80 East Final Design Project. This is being amended to essentially fund the design phase only of the capacity project to I-80 essentially between Vista and USA Parkway. The construction phase is not yet included. However, the RTC is working with NDOT to amend the RTP to change essentially the model year, and you'll be hearing that potentially next month. So more details to come on that project. So just some final details about this proposed action. It does require RTC board approval as well as state or NDOT approval and federal approvals. We did have a public comment period from May 29th to June 18th that was advertised through RTC's typical channels, including a Spanish language newspaper and the RTC website. It was also reviewed by CMAC and TAC, and today's meeting includes a public hearing of this item. I also would like to point out one letter that was received from Northern Nevada Public Health Air Quality Management Division. The letter is included in your packets and makes comments specifically on the I-80 project. But the bottom line is that the letter is not in opposition to this action item. And then a presentation, as I sort of alluded to earlier, presentation on transportation issues related to the Tri-Center will be included in item 6.1. So there'll be a little bit more on that to come. And with that, I will answer any questions you may have about the action item or the process. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for pointing out the public comment that we received from Michael Gothrop Hutchins on the I-80 project. I'm looking to the board to see if folks have comments or questions.
None for me, Madam Chair.
Okay,
No
thank you.
questions, thank you.
Thank you. I was wondering, on the comments we also received from the CMAC and the TAC, as well as the Health District, how do we incorporate those concerns and recommendations like carpool lanes into studies like this?
Sure. So there are a number of recommendations in the letter from the Air Quality Management Division. I think RTC is sort of already, enacting a lot of those recommendations. There are obviously employer shuttles, but besides that, there are van pools. RTC has a number of van pools that go out there. We'll be looking to undertake feasibility study of passenger rail in the coming months. So, a number of these suggestions are sort of already underway or in the books, sort of, so to speak.
And carpool lanes, are they part of that study?
Carpool lanes, I believe, and go ahead, Dale.
Yeah, Madam Vice Chair, Dale Keller, Deputy Executive Director for the record. I believe as they looked in different solutions on I-80 East through NDOT study, and maybe Director Larkin Thomas can speak further about that, but I believe they're considered and not recommended to be moving forward out of that I-80 corridor study at this time.
I would, Dale is correct. Those are looking at, I don't have all the specifics what's in there, but we're also looking at other alternatives, including even looking at rail and other options, just to relieve some of it. And part of that is the carpool study is just when it looks going out there, the heavy freight traffic there.
Oh,
There isn't enough room.
okay, got it. That's helpful. Thank you for putting that on the record so community members can understand why we're looking at alternatives, including the trail connectivity out to Trick, which is really exciting. So thank you for the support on that. Okay, any other comments or questions from the board? I'm not seeing any, so I am looking for a motion on this public hearing, please.
So moved.
Vice Chair Hill,
Yes.
as a matter of procedure, if we could
Oh,
officially open.
public comment. Thank you. Is there any public comment?
No public comment.
Thank you. I apologize. We have a motion from Commissioner Garcia. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Dare. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, that passes unanimously. We'll now move into our discussion item 6.1. Discuss transportation issues and needs in relation to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center and requested by Chair Lawson, and provide input and direction to the Executive Director. And this is for possible action, and I'm looking to the team for a staff report.
So good morning again, board members. Dale Keller, Deputy Executive Director for the record. So one of RTC's FY24 goals is to lead a multi-county effort to define transportation future related to Washoe County, the Tahoe-Reno Industrial Center or Tri-Center, and Fernley. So with this goal in mind, RTC's staff has been working with various public agencies as well as private stakeholders to better understand and address some of the unique regional challenges that is presented. So today's presentation will discuss those transportation challenges and need related to the Tri-Center, and we'll jump right into it. So as many of you are aware, the area between Reno Sparks and Fernley is rapidly developing. The most significant development, the Tri-Center, encompasses approximately 160 square miles. So as shown on the screen, this area is larger than actually the entire Reno Sparks proper city limits. So making Tri-Center one of the largest industrial developments in the world. Tri-Center has sold out its roughly about 30,000 developable acres and is slated to accommodate roughly 300 million square feet of building space. Major companies with land ownership in the Tri-Centers include Tesla, Google, Blockchain, and Switch, and other construction are planned in and around the area, such as the Apple Data Center. Tri-Center has created over 15,000 jobs and is estimated to produce roughly 35,000 to 50,000 jobs by 2040. And all that job growth results about 40,000 average annual daily trips by 2050. Interstate 80 is the primary access to and from the Tri-Center. And with this increase of traffic, we'll push the existing I-80 beyond its current capacity. And as we all know, if we drive out there, portions of those I-80 corridors is complicated. It has really steep terrain and is tucked in between the canyon and the Truckee River, as well as that twisting alignment, and there's minimum shoulders. So combined with those high traffic volumes, and the system is sensitive to even minor incidences, such as weather, crashes, vehicle breakdowns, and it routinely breaks down with delays lasting for hours. I think it's also important to note where these vehicle trips are coming from. So employers reported their total number of employees and approximate proportions of employees who live in various geographical locations. Approximately about 66.9% of the surveyed employees reside in the Reno Sparks area. And even further, so break that down, inside Reno is roughly about 35%, and Sparks roughly 30%. And then you add another about 1.4% coming out of the Spanish Springs area, and another about 6.2 from the North Valleys, and another 5.8 from the West Reno area. Totally about 80% of the average daily trips come from the Reno Sparks or Washoe County area. As for the existing transportation challenges, safety is the highest concern. NDOT Safety Division collected and evaluated crash data for the corridor. So crashes have nearly doubled in the last 3 years compared to the 2 previous 3-year periods. As for congestion, RTC's regional travel demand model predicts major traffic growth in the corridor with a roughly 30% increase by 2050. As you just heard from NDOT Director Tracy Larkin-Thomas, that freight movement is significant, and roughly about 20% of the vehicles on I-80 are trucks. And it's interesting to note that I-80 is the second longest interstate highway in the nation. And so with the unreliability and instability with those adverse impacts we talked about from safety, from congestion, it really hinders some of that significant freight corridor between California and Utah. And then lastly, for economic development, EDON has stated previously that this transportation bottleneck is limiting the economic growth for our region. So these transportation challenges are not new. In 2020, NDOT performed the I-80 corridor study, which was a comprehensive evaluation of studies and ideas for feasibility and to establish a performance-based prioritization. And so the study concluded that the widening of I-80 east between Vista Boulevard and USA Parkway was the most feasible option. And other alternatives were also considered in this report and currently being explored. So those other alternatives, we talked about alternative modes of transportation, RTC van pool, park and rides, commuter rail. Also, there's other roadway alternatives being considered besides the widening of I-80 East, which is the South Meadows Parkway extension, as well as the La Posada Drive connection. And I'll touch upon each of these individually here in this presentation. So as for alternative Modes of transportation. So to combat a lot of that vehicle congestion, RTC and actually private industry has been very successful at taking vehicles off the roadway. So currently, the RTC van pool sees roughly 1,800 passengers a day, utilizing the roughly 257 vans. On the private side, My Ride to Work sees roughly about 2,000 passengers a day. In addition, RTC is working with private industry and exploring a commuter rail transport service. So funding for this commuter rail study is included in our FY25 budget. And so staff is currently finalizing that request for qualifications to have a firm support that study. For the roadway alternatives, NDOT is leading the I-80 East widening project, where the project proposes to widen I-80 from 2 lanes to 3 lanes in each direction for 13 miles. The project would also improve safety and interchange operations. In 2023, NDOT initiated the environmental clearance or environmental study process, and they anticipate a finding of no significant impact, or a FONSI, by early 2025. This project cost is roughly over $500 million. I do want to applaud NDOT for being aggressive pursuing different US DOT mega grant opportunities, and we hope to hear some good news later this fall. NDOT is also evaluating a new alignment that would provide a connection from South Meadows Parkway to USA Parkway in Southeast Reno, otherwise known as the South Road. This alternative would mostly go through privately owned property. The alignment would provide an alternate route for commuters traveling from South Reno to the Tri-Center, as well as reducing the number of vehicles on I-80. Having a secondary route to Tri-Centers would significantly benefit should I-80 be closed or if there's an incident that does occur on the roadway. As I said, the current phase of this is roughly a very preliminary alignment study, as you saw from the last action taken from the RTIP amendment, and there's been no funding identified for construction at this time. Another solution being considered would be a new alignment from the La Posada Drive in Sparks to the Tri-Center, otherwise known as that North Road. This would provide an alternate route for commuters traveling from the Sparks and Spanish Springs area. And also with the addition of that Lemon Valley to Spanish Springs connection, a new alignment could also draw potential ridership from employees who live in the North Valleys. This alignment mostly goes through BLM property. Like the South Road, providing an alternate route would be a benefit to I-80 by taking trips off the roadway, providing an alternate route when we have times of emergencies as we go through that. Right now, there's no lead agency that RTC staff is aware of is leading. Also, funding has not been identified, and what was currently being looked into is a very conceptual alignment, as you see on the screen. So this concludes the presentation, and I'd like to say, as it relates to our FY24 goals, I think we're making very good progress in having the different public agencies as well as private industry coming to the table and having dialogue that helps solve some of these challenges that we see in our region. So staff is looking for board input and direction at this time.
Thank you very much. To Commissioner Dare.
Yes, thank you for that presentation. And I think by 2050, we're going to need all and yes and all of it for sure, because it's kind of crazy to think what's happening out there. And it's exciting, actually. But I'm definitely one that would like to see us be able to direct staff to proceed with the process of acquiring the roadway easement for permit from BLM to the connection of La Posada and USA Parkway. And that easement would make such a difference. And I do want to just tag on here, just on my health district board side, we're also dealing with air pollution, and put that on the record, that as cars sit there, we're already very close to non-attainment. And us making sure our cars are moving will also affect our economic development pretty quickly, and also the health of our community. So we don't have time to sit back and just wait. We need to do what we can quickly, as well as do the things that will take longer. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Director Larkin Thomason is unmuted.
Yes, I just wanted to add a couple of comments, and I appreciate certainly what Dale and RTC has put together in presenting this out there. Obviously, I-80 is under our jurisdiction, and there's a lot of things that we've been putting into it. We have, as we said, we have been very aggressive, both on our own and working with RTC to go after grants and mega grants to help move this project forward, the widening. But I do want to point out that as the project is expected to be between 500 and 600 million at this time, when it goes out, without a significant grant of like 500 million or something like that, I will be looking at dividing it into 3 projects. So it would be 3 projects of big design build as opposed to design build. Basically, one, we can't build it all at once anyway.
Right.
It makes a slight slowdown, but then it would be looking at like Vista to Patrick and so on like that, about 3 projects moving out there. We are looking at the South Connector, and I guess just to add to that on I-80, certainly Friendly has also been aggressive in the growth that they're starting to see out there, particularly to the east of their town, and then the possibly opening up of a lot of land in the Wadsworth area. So while we have the plan to get out to USA Parkway first, we will have to start looking, really once we get that, to start looking beyond that. The South Connector, we did agree, and we are going through the alignment study. Our very preliminary ones show that it being approximately about 900 million. Just to kind of give the magnitude, that's in today's dollars. There's a lot of significant canyons, so there would be structures, and that's what's looking in, with the potential of using some private land that could reduce some of the cost. But that is just to say it's pretty far down. We have only doing the alignment study because if we go into it still needs the environmental part, but after the environmental part is done, then we need to put a fiscal note on it, and there is no funding for that. We certainly support the efforts that have been made by RTC and the city of Sparks looking at the north part. All of these are needed. And also, I'm also looking at US 50 at this point, only about 10% is coming up that way, but that's a number that has steadily been growing over the last couple of years, and we're seeing the additional growth, like from the Stagecoach, Silver Springs, but the US 50 area, particularly as Trick moves to the south part. So all those things are just coming up. So, and along with, I gotta say, Reno, Sparks, Washoe County is booming. All of you there knowing that we also have additional work going on I-80 in the center. We still buy the Nugget. We're finishing up the Pyramid. We have another phase in the North Valley coming in 2026 and on there. And when we talk about that phase in front of the Nugget, that's phase 2B out of 5 phases. So you're going to see a lot of NDOT cones for the next decade. I say that with a smile and a little bit of frustration, but it's there. But again, I thank RTC for their partnership and also just for kind of putting this in front of all of us as we look regionally at how we can actually promote the interconnectivity and get a more robust network in the area. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your leadership, Director Larkin Thomason. I think that we need to see the cones out because the money is there right now, so we need to be doing the work, and you and your team have been amazing to make sure that we don't miss out on those opportunities, so I appreciate that. I'm curious on that 2020 study. I didn't see it in our packet, but maybe I missed it. Why was the I-80 widening the most recommended over La Posada and the East South Meadows Parkway connection?
I'm presuming that question is to me.
Yes, or whoever.
I haven't read it reasonably, but I think because of the freight growth.
Okay.
Is my part. It is, as they mentioned, it is one of the longest, but also one of the major freight routes, not only in Nevada, but to Middle America from the coastline. We are actually looking at some multi-state studies, looking at how we can ease it actually going across literally from California over to New Jersey. And that widening is because when Trick exploded, basically that's where it hit.
Okay, great. Commissioner Dare.
Yeah, because thank you so much, Tracy Larkin. I appreciate you and your leadership has been great seeing you on your dot. Yeah, you've done a lot in our area. When you talk about freight, one of the reasons we actually think La Posada should have some priority is because freight can detour and go 395 because a lot of them go there. Because I know both Tesla, Walmart, Panasonic, they all see a value in that because they don't even have to come into Reno Sparks, and they can take so much off of that load. So just put something on the record. I don't know the numbers of how much that would be, but I know they're very interested in it for those reasons that they don't even have to go into Reno Sparks to get skirted by doing the idea of getting it to 395. So I just want to put that on the record. I know sure you guys have all thought about those things, but it hasn't been mentioned. So thanks.
I would also like just to add to that, though, when you look at going to Posada, and it is good to go up there and hit it on the Pyramid Highway, but to truly, and that requires land, which obviously you're looking for the BLM. We were looking at both the land bill from Congressman Amadei and Congress in general, but also just, like I said, going for the easements to BLM. But what would really be there is also looking at how that would connect over to 395 on the other side. So it would be looked at having a connector there to actually ease it so you could actually avoid the center of Reno Sparks.
Yeah, that's the benefit I think I really see, because we don't want anybody dumping. If we're not going all the way to 395, then we're just creating a mess in Sparks. We would not be for that. I know for a fact. But the route to 395, though it might be interesting at first. I mean, I remember when Vegas put those easements through, and it was a very short time before they realized they needed to expand and really make that a true freeway around the whole Vegas area. And so I think we're going to see similar type things when we just get an easement in. We at least can start seeing the benefit of it, and then I think from there it will tell its own story. But thank you so much. I think in the very end, all of them are going to be needed at some point. So, but the quickest help is what I'm probably interested in, and I think widening the 80 is going to make a huge mess at first. So you need another route for people to go on before we close down part of that road. I just don't even see, like, I don't like the idea of closing that, put any part of that down so we can expand it. That actually seems fearful to me, but just my thoughts.
Commissioner Garcia?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate the multi-county effort and thinking of it in that lens, and I agree that we're going to need all possible solutions on deck, and the investment is going to be significant. I think a lot of our constituents would really be interested to learn more about the commuter rail study or being able to utilize that option. I was just curious if we've done, I see that there's existing infrastructure. I'm on the NDOT Nevada State Rail Plan online, and there's already existing infrastructure there. Have we, I guess first question is, have we ever done a commuter rail study going out this direction? And if so, what were the findings then? And what is the process moving forward? Because I know that with 80% coming from Reno Sparks, this could be a truly a viable option for a lot of folks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Am I on? Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. For the record, Jim Gee, Director of Public Transit, RTC. We did a commuter rail study previously about 6 or 7 years ago, but it was an in-house staff-directed study that basically documented just the expected costs. That was pre-growth of TRIC, and the world has changed quite a bit since that, so we think it's really important to have a more robust study now that will have participation from our friends on the private side, participation from other governmental units, and a outside consultant to really quantify the costs and the benefits of such a project.
And can we direct that today as well, in addition to La Posada, as part of our discussion? Or is staff already doing that?
Madam Vice Chair, I think that'd be helpful just as reassurance of the direction we're moving on.
Okay, good to know. Anything else, Commissioner Garcia?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Great, and I'm also in alignment with the staff recommendation and board recommendation of doing all of these things and looking into all of these things, and certainly want to support the La Posada connection as well as the rail. I'm just curious how we are engaging with Story County, because they are an important partner as in this process, and I want to make sure that our taxpayers know that we're engaging with them on financial support as well for these projects, because it's our workers who are making them so successful as a county, and they're about to receive their Tesla property tax windfall. So I'm just curious where we are with those discussions and if we need to look into having a joint meeting with them eventually.
Madam Vice Chair, those discussions are ongoing, and I think we've seen a willingness to meet and discuss those different financial options and how we contribute to these different alternatives. Right now, I think this would be, if the direction by the board is to RTC to pursue the BLM application, I think we start looking at hard number of costs for these projects, for either for design, right-of-way, and then construction. I think there'll be a lot more dialogue that staff would have with our board as before we proceed or make financial commitments, and understanding our board's desire of how Story County or other entities help participate in the funding.
Great, okay. Then do you feel like you've received the direction you need on both the rail and La Posada, and working with BLM on that and coming up with recommendations for this board?
Looking at our legal counsel, Adam Spear, I believe that answer is yes.
Okay, so no motion needed on this?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. And any other board discussion or comments before we wrap up this item? Commissioner Dare?
I just want to say it's a great discussion, and it's something that we can't not have, and even if it's uncomfortable for some. This is a lot bigger than the city or just, I know Ed Lawson, he's been pushing on this, but it's bigger than a mayor, it's bigger than all that. We cannot close our eyes to this, or we're even in 15, 20 years, they'll be looking at us and wondering what the heck we were thinking. But I think they're already looking at us wondering what we were thinking, because it's already pretty tough. So thank you, NDOT, and glad to be with you today for the conversation.
Absolutely. We want to make sure that our community is safe, and right now, it's not the safest route to get to work. So we need to see what we can do to ensure that folks get to work on time and get there in a safe way, and provide a lot of alternatives for them as well. I'm seeing Adam whispering. Is there something we need?
Yeah, Madam Vice Chair, we do have a request for public comment if you'd like to take it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. My name is Will Adler on behalf of Story County. Story County is in conversations with the RTC, Washoe County, NDOT, and officials, coordinating assistance with the road projects and the transit corridors we just discussed. Story has also submitted a substantial amount of effort, actually, and submitted deregulatory code efforts to ease the housing efforts in the southern part of the county towards the Highway 50 side of the NDOT corridor access. I thought it was pretty relevant that Ms. Tracy brought up the expansion of the Highway 50 side of traffic, because in the future I do think that too will be a big part of the formula, is how do you relieve Highway 80 is really relieving the stress burden on the whole region. And I think having additional housing on the Story County, Lyon County side of 50 ultimately will help with that drawdown of the mass traffic we see building up on 80, because southern part of TRI is being developed as we speak, and that is where we want to see mass coordination throughout the region to address these issues as they come up. And then Story County is in conversations with the region about the east-west corridor as well. The board has approved the resolution for the Truckee Meadows Lands Bill as well, and we are looking into the rail corridor for commuter traffic. Basically, we're here at the table for all these issues, and we'd like to be part of the solutions of the future. So thank you very much for having us, and thanks for having this discussion today.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear Story County is a partner. That's wonderful.
Madam.
Any other public comment?
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Lori Rodriguez for the record. Some of you remember, some of you weren't on the board. In 2019, I did approach NDOT, this board, all the counties involved, Story County, Lyon County, Churchill County, and cities of Fernley and Fallon, and they were all interested in the rail project. But what I want to remind you, sorry, I don't have any notes, there is an elevated rail system that goes straight down the middle of existing freeways or can be built to the side of the freeways. So if we took into account when designing the I-80 widening, putting an elevated system, down the center of it and get it funded as part of our widening, that would be great. I understand you would have to have stations, you would have to have parking lots, you would have to have bus routes that would go to these stations to bring the people so they're not on the freeway, and vans hopefully out at Trick to pick up the employees and take them to their different places of work. And I would just like to remind you that there are alternative systems other than just on-the-ground passenger rail. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And when we conduct these, is there any other public comment? I apologize.
No, Vice Mayor. Or Vice
Thank
Mayor.
you. When we conduct these studies, do we look at, when we're looking at La Posada, for example, back to the question of rail, do we look at more than just a roadway as those possibilities of, I've heard light rail, I don't know anything about the possibility of it, but is that something staff also looks at when we study these things?
Simple answer is yes. There are things as we go through the process, if we take a step further past the alignment study, as we start looking through environmental, those are things we need to consider as we go through the environmental process. But for this first step, working with BLM for the alignment, we won't get into that level of detail at this time.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other board comments or questions before we move on? I'm not seeing it. Oh, Commissioner Garcia.
I was just going to say no.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. And really looking forward to seeing both the rail and La Posada come back to this board for further discussion. We will now move to item 7, our reports. Our first report is a message from the RTC Executive Director, who's not here today, but I'm assuming Mr. Keller will take this over.
I will. So for the report for June here, so last Monday we hosted Evan Wetzel from U.S. Department of Transportation. Commissioner Hill joined RTC staff and Evan for a meeting and a tour for some of our projects that are receiving federal funding or could receive funding in the future. The tour included the Villanova Maintenance Facility, our 3 downtown bridge projects, and some projects that the board designated as federal priorities. We think this was a valuable chance to showcase what the RTC is doing to improve transportation in our region. We're also happy to provide free transit for kids during summer break. We launched this pilot program on June 8th. It'll be up and running through August 11th, a day before school starts back up. The program is for everyone and anyone 17 and under. Free transit supports accessibility to the Kids Cafe Summer Meals program to get free lunch while school is out. It also helps teens get to and from their summer jobs, and it provides another option to get to various recreational activities throughout the Truckee Meadows. Last week, the trail fire burned near Raleigh Heights in the Golden Valley areas. RTC requested transit contractors Keolis and MTM to identify transportation staff and assets for possible emergency evacuations. Both organizations were responsive and timely in their preparations for an emergency response. Fortunately, no evacuation assistance was needed, but I want to thank Keolis and MTM for being such a great resource to our community. Earlier this week, we held a media event for a groundbreaking of the South Virginia Street and I-580 Exit 29 Capacity and Safety Project. That's around the old Pink Scalaries. Thank you to Commissioner Hill, our project manager Maria Paz Fernandez, and Reno Vice Mayor Naomi Dewar for letting the public know about this very important project. We're adding a northbound lane on South Virginia Street, improving interchange operations, and installing sidewalks, bike lanes, and ADA facilities, among many other upgrades. For some internal RTC news, I'd like to introduce you to our newest employees, LaShawn Ford, who's in the room. Say hi, LaShawn. And Brandon Case. LaShawn is our new traffic engineer who comes for us from NDOT. He worked there as a senior ITS project manager in the traffic operations division. Brandon is our new engineering technician / intern. He is currently attending University of Nevada, Reno. He'll be with us through the summer. So let's welcome LaShawn and Brandon to the RTC team. And so one other internal news, RTC team and family continues to grow. So I'd like to congratulate Austin McCoy and his wife Erin on the birth of their first baby boy. The McCoys welcome Jackson to their family on May 2nd. Austin is one of our project managers in the engineering department. We wish them all the best as their adventures as parents. Please join me in congratulating Jules Powell as the MTN Employee of the Month for May. Jules has been with MTN for a year and has made a good impact with her passengers. She finds the job very calming and zen-like. She enjoys interacting with her customers and goes home with a sense of pride knowing she's helped her community. Jules is a gamer at heart and occasionally delves into the world of Dungeons and Dragons. I want to thank Jules for her first year with us and hope there are many more to come. Earl Bright Nelson is the Keolis Driver of the Month for May. Earl has worked for Keolis since April of 2008. His accomplishments last month consist of 93% on-time performance, 0 preventative accidents, and no customer complaints. Earl is originally from Chicago. He's a big Cubs fan, and he enjoys spending quality time with his family. The Keolis Driver of the Month receives a $250 gift card and a parking spot. The Technicians and Utility Worker of the Month both receive a $200 gift card as well. And that concludes the report.
Thank you very much, and thank you for pointing out the gift cards amounts, because I think that's been a question of the board, so that sounds very generous. And congratulations on the new baby, and welcome to the new employees. Any questions for our acting director? Not seeing any. Okay. We will now move on to our update from Paul Nelson, RTC Government Affairs Officer, on federal matters related to RTC.
Good morning. Paul Nelson, Government Affairs Officer for RTC. The Senate Public Lands, Forests, and Mining Subcommittee held a hearing last week that included 20 bills, and one of them was the Truckee Meadows Lands Management Act. Senator Cortez Masto chairs this committee, and she did give a brief overview of the bill. There weren't really any questions regarding this bill, but there is written testimony online that you can look at from the BLM and the USDA. We're definitely following this bill, and we're hoping to see some progress over the next few months. Congress is turning its attention to appropriations, and the House GOP does have a plan to pass all 12 bills by the end of July. 5 of those bills failed to pass last year, and we're kind of expecting the same kind of scenario this year. The Senate is moving a little bit slower on appropriations, so it's kind of a wait and see. Hopefully they can get this stuff done before the fiscal year ends. NOFOs like mega, infra, and rural are being released earlier and closing earlier this year, and that's a reflection of the election year. And the reason why is to announce more awards ahead of Election Day. Agencies have a lot shorter window to apply for some of these grants, so instead of at least 60 days, they might have at least 30 days instead. So we'll be looking at that as we're looking at some of these grants moving forward too. The NOFO for the next round of PROTECT funding is expected next month, and as you know, we have plenty of federal priorities that we'll look at to see if any of them could qualify for grants like PROTECT and some other ones. The House Subcommittee on Highways and Transit held a hearing last week where it discussed post-pandemic lessons. Topics covered ridership, safety, and other post-pandemic concerns. The upcoming FHWA August redistribution is a chance for states to flex funds from FHWA to FTA to support transit projects. And we'll be looking at this moving forward. We'll discuss whether or not this is something that RTC would be interested in doing. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Nelson? I'm not seeing any. Okay. We'll now get our update by Director Tracy Larkin-Thomason from NDOT.
All right, thank you. I'm going to close out with a fairly short, just a couple of bullet points. As mentioned here, we have the work zone safety thing. This was brought up last month, and the campaign is led by the AGC, but also in partnership with the contractors, NDOT, and RTC. RTC was represented by Ed Lawson, Bill Thomas, and Dale Keller. We had across the board, so the AGC that you see there, Ed, myself, the governor, and also the national AGC point. And it really is just to point out and remind people that those cones, there are people behind the cones, and we want them to get home. There's some great ones you'll start seeing. If you haven't already seen the ads, you should see them on the TV. You should also see it on the billboard. It really is a good reminder of watch out for everybody out on the road. And then next, then the Lieutenant Governor met with the AGC, came up, and also with, you can see with Ed out there, we went and toured two of the major projects that NDOT has in the Reno area. That is Pyramid Highway project, and then they crossed over and came down on the US 395 projects. Fortunately, the Pyramid, I like to say that fortunately, because the Pyramid project will be wrapping up this year. So we'll move some of the cones off of Pyramid for a while. The 395 project will continue on this year, and then we'll be following up with phase 2 on the second one. So Lieutenant Governor really did enjoy the tour of the area. Next. Then also just to expect the routine bridge inspection, we are required by law to inspect every single bridge in the state of Nevada every 2 years. And so you'll be seeing some of road closures a little bit on some of the major bridges as they work through the area. These are, you'll see a lane closure just so we can park the bridge, the truck that you see here that goes underneath. These are intermittent closures, and they're fairly short duration, usually just a day. And then one other thing, as it was mentioned before, this is the election season coming up. So just a reminder that political advertising is not allowed within state highway portions. I do want to point out that if you have a question about whether it is our property or not, please contact our district office and we'll work with you. We will remove the signs. I do say we do not destroy the signs. The signs will be stored at the local, the closest maintenance station. So depending if you're at Tahoe, most of this area would be at the Reno maintenance station there off on Galletti. Just please be aware of it. And there are some nuances on there. So if you have fences and you're posting on the fence, if it is a state fence, it is not allowed. However, if there was a fence that was put up by a private partner and you know them, go for it. So that's pretty much it on that. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
That looked like the back of Alexis Hill's sign.
Hey, I was like, is this directed at me? No. We follow the laws. That's right.
I know. This year, I can't say in the past, but this year you're not taking down one of my signs. Who does?
Good job. Good job. Okay, any questions for the director? Not seeing any. Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 8, commissioner announcements and updates. Do any board members have announcements or updates or requests for future agenda topics? I'm not seeing any. Okay, we now will move into our last public comment, item 9. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment?
No public comments.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, thank you for a wonderful meeting, everyone, and thank you for accommodating a virtual meeting for Commissioner Garcia and I so we can certify the vote later today. And have a wonderful rest of your Friday and weekend. And we are adjourned.
Bye, everyone.